This video was brought to you by Squarespace. Not gonna lie, kinda running out of jokey ways to ask you if you need a website. But you know what's not a joke? How useful Squarespace is for building websites. What do you need? Business landing page, blog, portfolio, content archive, storefront, whatever, man. Squarespace makes it easy. Just pick a template to start if you want. Use the intuitive builder to tweak stuff and you're done. You don't need experience because it all just kind of works. And at the end, you've got a website and it looks great. My site, Arlo Recommends, is a blog, so I barely got to do anything. Paste in my text, edit, format, embed some pictures, schedule to post and automatically push to social media when it does. Boom, that's it, I'm done. If I ever need more, Squarespace offers a bunch of powerful extensions. And let's not forget about the very convenient suite of analytics to enjoy. Hey, point is, anything you need for your site, Squarespace provides, and it's all easy and simple. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now, for today's recommendation, Coherence. If you love mind-bending movies, don't look up a trailer, don't read a synopsis, just watch it. What it achieves with its tiny cast and microscopic budget is an incredible achievement in filmmaking, if ya ask me. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now, that's the end of the ad. Thank you, I'll see you next time. Just a little dusty. We are here, my friends. We are here. This is it. This right here, this moment, this is it. We are standing on the precipice. Okay, I suppose I shouldn't wax philosophical about the passage of time too much. I already did that plenty in my Calm Before the Switch 2 Storm video. What can I say? I love being overdramatic about silly things. Yes, at least in part, I do want this video to capture one last snapshot in time. As I record this, the release of the Switch 2 is 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. Soon, we're gonna start measuring the time in days. But more than anything, I would like to take this time to do something that I always knew I would have to do eventually. You know, even if it was hard to grasp it, way back in March of 2017, even back then, I knew that someday, somewhere in the mysterious cloud of unformed potential that is the future, the time would come to say goodbye to the Nintendo Switch. Oh, sure, the Switch isn't exactly going anywhere. You know, my Switch isn't gonna turn to dust and float away in the wind at midnight on June 5th. And it blows up into the clouds and then the music is swelling and I'm like, wait, don't go. We've got Tomodachi Life and Rhythm Heaven coming next year. I really don't know beyond that. It's possible that Nintendo will support the Switch with exclusive titles for a while. Maybe not, I don't know. At the very least though, we've got those 2 games. But generations are tied to hardware. And even if Nintendo has kind of dislodged itself from the generational structure of the greater industry by ditching the Wii U really quickly and releasing the Switch midway through Gen 8, does that make Switch 8th gen or 9th gen? I've got the answer for you. It's who cares? At the very least, the release of a new Nintendo console will always mark the beginning of a new Nintendo generation and the end of an old one. And hey, I will also give you that, in a sense, the transition between generations can feel kinda gradual. It's not like 150 million people are gonna throw their Switches in a dumpster and pick up a Switch 2 on day one, especially with all the pricing stuff. It's gonna roll out over time. And, you know, backlogs, I mean, they're a scourge. They've never been a bigger problem than they are today. Most of us have stacks and stacks of games looming over us, and for many people, those games will be Switch games. Don't want to get a Switch 2 yet? No problem. There's plenty to play. You could probably just skip this generation entirely if you wanted. I could take the next 8 years to catch up, and that still probably wouldn't be enough. But the nature of the Switch 2, the fact that it's such a straightforward iteration, you know, pretty much the same system but better, and essentially all Switch games will be backwards compatible. For those who do pick up a Switch 2, the original will be rendered pretty much entirely obsolete immediately, the second you take that new thing out of the box. And then of course, you gotta look at it from Nintendo's perspective. When Switch 2 lands, that's it. That becomes the system that matters. The day the Switch 2 launches is essentially the day the Switch's life ends. On that day, the Switch stops being Nintendo's primary console, the ones that they're making all their biggest games for, the one being advertised the hardest, the one that represents their foreseeable future. And that is the precise moment we figuratively say goodbye to the Switch. That's when the Switch generation in its entirety becomes a memory. It's retired. It gets all wrapped up and put on the shelf. Series wrap on all the characters, Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and Pikmin 4 and Emio the Smiling Man and Labo and all that. The whole gang takes a final bow, roll credits, that's it. Sure, some characters will have cameos in the new series, and you can always go back and watch the old episodes, but the show is done. And it's funny because this is an end of the generation goodbye video. So naturally there's this temptation to do some grand send-off, like a huge 2-hour-long video going over all the best games and moments and everything of the entire Switch generation. But summing up the Switch's life in one video, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like too big a task, especially for like right now. I'm a little busy at the moment. If I end up doing retrospective stuff, it's more likely to be like a number of videos over the course of the next year or something, like what were the best games? What were the games with the best graphics? What were the best Nintendo Directs? What were the worst? Just like all that stuff. There's plenty of stuff we could talk about. But yeah, we can't do all that today. Today is not a day to do all of that. So I guess all I can do right now is keep it simple, Keep this video to just the actual goodbye itself. Okay, well, I mean, it can't just be the goodbye, We do at least have to briefly touch on why this goodbye is such a big deal. You could use a lot of words to describe the Switch, but I don't think it would be an exaggeration to call it a transformative console. Not just a good console, not just a great one, but one that made things happen. It made things materialize and change. For many, many people, this was the beginning of their Nintendo fandom. You've got younger folks for whom this was their very first Nintendo console, which is crazy idea to me, starting on such an incredible generation. I mean, I hope I don't oversell the turmoil us older gamers have been through over the years, all the crazy ups and downs. I know Game of Thrones jokes are pretty old hat by now, but I cannot help but think of the summer children who know only warmth and flowers and all the grizzled old folks who have lived through these long, long winters, looking at them and kind of shaking their heads. Now, don't let anyone tell you that this was the generation where Nintendo lost its way. That's revisionist history. The Switch generation was incredible. What a great way to start your Nintendo fandom. But then in addition, you've got all the people who were never really into Nintendo originally, but the Switch lured them in. It was just so good. It was just so attractive. The games were so cool. I constantly see comments from people saying that Switch really was the start for them. A ton of the Switch's user base is made up of new Nintendoism converts. And then you've got all the people who were into Nintendo sometime back, and then they fell out with Nintendo, and this has brought them back. And then, of course, because of all of these new and returning people, you gotta look at it from Nintendo's perspective. This was the generation when Nintendo completely reversed their fortunes. I know I am retreading old ground here. I covered this plenty, went over the whole thing in the Calm Before the Storm video. Not gonna do the whole entire song and dance, but like, the Switch was when Nintendo not only found their footing again, but they did a complete 180. They went from being in the most dangerous position they have ever been in, the closest they have ever come to having to ditch the hardware business entirely, to being the most profitable, the most successful they have ever been in their entire long history. The Switch made Nintendo a household name again. It literally saved them. And then, of course, you've got people like me, the old timers, and I know it's not as simple as Nintendo was bad and now they are good. You know, like the Wii U, it's got plenty of defenders. Nintendo has always made good games. But to me, the Switch really was like kind of the end of the dark ages. You know, again, I'm not gonna do the whole thing, whatever, you get the picture. Switch just represented such a big change. And even if Nintendo still has plenty of problems, the shift has just been so dramatic. I have witnessed them struggling in a lot of areas for so many years, and yet now they've They've really figured a lot of stuff out. Basically, the Switch was when it became easier than ever to be a Nintendo fan. There's a simple way of putting it. It used to be a lot more difficult and tumultuous to be a Nintendo fan, but like, I don't know, it hasn't been this easy since the GameCube. And then of course, there's the whole career angle for me. My channel was already gaining some traction before the Switch came around, but like, nah, I'm a Switch tuber. That's it. You know, I'm a gaming YouTuber, but then I'm a Nintendo YouTuber. But I'm basically a Switch tuber. That's pretty much what I am. Even apart from all the fandom stuff, the Switch basically set the course for my career. But now I really am retreading old ground too much, so I really should wrap this up. Again, it's tempting to look back at everything the Switch did, all the crazy years of fun it gave us, all the ups and downs and all that. But it's like, just too much for one video. It feels weird to simply wave goodbye, see you later, like when we're leaving so much behind, but right now that's really all we can do. As a wise frog once said, life is made up of meetings and partings. That is the way of it. And I want to say I've referenced that before, but I can't for the life of me remember where. If so, then I am not sorry. I will do it again too. And if not, then I just completely ruined the delivery, and I am sorry. Anyway, that's it. We have officially reached the end. Goodbye, little buddy. Thanks for all the memories. How much you think a used Switch goes for these days? It is only heavily used. The Joy-Cons still mostly stay attached. My nephew used it a lot, so it is minimally encrusted with peanut butter. And this is the OLED. I've still got the base model in my closet somewhere. I think it's still in there somewhere. And that's actually not the original. That's the one with the upgraded battery. The my original Switch I gave away to my sister already. Any takers? This Switch right here. This is the Switch that Arlo played Pikmin 4 on. Oh, whoa. It's got to be worth something, right? Email me.